There's a quiet war happening inside our minds, one that no one else can see, but we feel it every single day. It's that constant stream of thoughts that pull us into worry, regret, self-doubt, or overthinking. And the strange part, sometimes it doesn't even take much, just a single thought, and suddenly our whole mood shifts, our energy drops, and peace feels like a distant memory. But here's something the Buddha taught that changes everything. The mind is not your enemy, it's a powerful tool, and with the right understanding it can be trained to work for you, not against you. That's what this video is about. It's not just another list of habits or feel-good ideas. It's a guide rooted in ancient Buddhist wisdom, practices that have helped people quiet their minds and reconnect with something much deeper than surface-level calm. What I'm about to share with you can shift how you experience your mornings, and honestly, how you live your life. But you need to stick with me until the end, because every part of this builds on the last. Don't skip around, don't miss what your mind might need to hear today. And if you find even one moment of peace or clarity in what we're building here, there's just one simple free favor I'll ask. Tap that subscribe button. It helps this community grow, and it lets me know that this path we're walking together is something worth continuing. Now let's begin. Some mornings, it feels like the world expects too much from us before we've even had a chance to breathe. The alarm goes off, the mind starts racing, and before our feet even hit the floor, we're already thinking about emails, problems, and everything we didn't do yesterday. That tension, that mental noise creeps in so quietly that we don't even realize it's shaping the rest of our day. But here's something worth reflecting on. The very first moments after we wake up are sacred. They're not just a transition from sleep to the grind, they're a doorway. And how we step through that doorway determines how the rest of the day unfolds. In Buddhist teaching, the idea of mindfulness, sati, isn't just for meditation or retreat. It starts the moment we become aware. The moment you open your eyes, you are given the rare gift of a new day. The Buddha taught that this human life is precious, and waking up in itself is a blessing, not to be rushed past or taken for granted. So before you jump into the whirlwind of the world, take a breath. Feel the weight of your body against the bed. Notice the light in the room and become fully present. These may seem like tiny acts, but they anchor you. They remind you that before anything else happens, you have this moment, a fresh start. Most of us wake up and immediately turn outward. We reach for our phones, we start thinking about everything outside of us. But in Buddhism, the journey is always inward first. That inward journey begins with awareness, just pausing for a moment to notice that you are alive, that you have a body, that your breath is moving in and out. This is how we begin to return home to ourselves. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of right attention, not just attention in general, but attention directed to the present moment, to the reality of now. When we wake up and immediately direct our awareness inward, we start the day rooted instead of restless. There's a practice in some Buddhist traditions where monks and lay people alike greet the morning with a small mental recitation. Today is a new day. I vow to meet it with awareness and compassion. You can do your own version of this. It doesn't have to be formal. You could just say to yourself, I'm here. I've woken up. Let me live today with presence. This simple moment of intention sets the tone. It tells your mind, we're not running today, we're not just reacting, we're starting from stillness. It might seem like this kind of pause is too small to matter, especially in a world that values speed and productivity. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us that small seeds, when planted daily, grow into powerful trees. Waking up with awareness is one of those seeds. It's an act of reclaiming your mind before the noise of the world tries to hijack it. It's a way of saying, I choose to begin my day from peace, not pressure. There's something powerful about the moments before the day fully begins. When the world is still quiet, the light is soft and everything feels untouched. That little space between sleep and action holds a kind of magic, if we choose to meet it with awareness. So many of us, the second we open our eyes, get pulled into noise, reminders, messages, worries. It's like the mind hits play on a track we didn't choose, and we just go along with it. But there's another way to begin, one that comes from the heart of Buddhist wisdom, and it starts not with doing more, but with pausing and choosing. In the teachings of the Buddha, there's a beautiful practice known as Sama Sankappa, which means right intention. It's one of the steps on the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha's guide to living a life of peace, clarity, and purpose. Right intention is about the quiet decision you make in your own heart, the direction you want your energy to flow today. It's not about setting rigid goals or chasing perfection. It's about remembering who you want to be and then gently guiding your thoughts, words, and actions toward that. Every day, the Buddha reminded us, we are shaping our lives by where we place our mind. So the way we begin our day, the intention we set, is more powerful than most people realize. You might be wondering, what does that actually look like? It's simpler than you think. Before you get out of bed or even open your eyes fully, just take a moment, breathe. Feel your body, feel the stillness, and ask yourself, what kind of energy do I want to bring into today? Do I want to be patient? Do I want to be kind? Do I want to approach things calmly, without rushing? There's no right or wrong answer. What matters is that it comes from a place of truth. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're checking in with yourself. Now here's the beauty of it. When you set a clear, heartfelt intention in the morning, it becomes a kind of inner compass. Throughout the day, when things get messy or you feel overwhelmed, that intention is there to remind you, this is how I wanted to move through the world today. Maybe your intention was to stay centered, and later when someone says something irritating, instead of reacting, you pause, you breathe, you remember. That tiny moment? That's where transformation lives. Buddhism teaches that change doesn't happen in grand gestures. It happens in small, mindful moments that add up over time. What also makes this practice so grounding is that it reconnects you with choice. The Buddha was clear. While we can't control everything that happens to us, we can always choose how we meet it. Setting an intention each morning helps us reclaim that choice. It keeps us from being swept up in other people's energy or in the chaos of a busy world. It helps us respond rather than react. And that space between reaction and response, that's where your peace lives. You don't need fancy rituals or hours of meditation to do this. 1 minute of honest reflection can change your whole approach to the day. Over time, as this becomes a habit, you'll start to notice something beautiful. You're not just going through your days anymore, you're guiding them. You're living more deliberately. And that's what the Buddha ultimately wanted for us. Not to live perfectly, but to live consciously. Some mornings it feels like your mind is already sprinting before you've even had a chance to breathe. You wake up and almost instantly, thoughts start rushing in. Unfinished tasks, worries about the future, maybe even things from years ago that you wish you could forget. It's like your brain hit play on a playlist you didn't ask for, full of doubt, stress, and comparison. The Buddha deeply understood this pattern. He called it the monkey mind, a restless, unsettled state where our thoughts swing wildly from one branch to another, rarely pausing to rest. And the thing is, most of us never stop to question it. We just let the monkey run wild. But here's where Buddhist wisdom offers something truly transformative. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. This simple shift, learning to watch your thoughts instead of getting caught in them, can be life-changing. Buddhism teaches a practice called bare attention, and it's as gentle as it sounds. It means noticing what arises in your mind, without adding extra commentary, without judgment, and without immediately reacting. It's like standing at the edge of a river and watching leaves float by, rather than jumping in and being swept away. When you notice a thought like, "I'm not good enough," you don't fight it or try to prove it wrong. You just acknowledge it. That's self-doubt. And that awareness alone creates a small but powerful gap, a bit of breathing room between you and the thought. In that gap, you find your freedom. Think of it like this. If a cloud passes overhead, you don't panic and try to push it away. You just know it'll pass. Thoughts are the same. They come and go, but they don't define who you are. The Buddha taught that clinging to any mental formation, whether it's a happy fantasy or a painful memory, leads to suffering. But when you see the thought for what it is, just a thought, it loses its power to control you. That's not something most of us were taught growing up. We were taught to believe our thoughts, to chase them, or to silence them. But Buddhism invites us to do something far more compassionate, to simply notice them. Now, in the morning, this practice becomes especially important. That early mental chatter tends to shape how the rest of your day unfolds. If you catch yourself spiraling into worry about something that hasn't even happened yet, pause and gently name it, worrying. If you're ruminating on something hurtful from the past, say, remembering. It's not about forcing your mind to be positive. It's about becoming conscious of the direction it's heading. And once you're aware, you can choose to shift your attention. This doesn't mean the thoughts will stop coming. They won't. Even the most experienced monks in Buddhist monasteries deal with negative thoughts. But what they've mastered is the art of non-reactivity. They've trained their minds not by force, but by patiently returning to awareness over and over again. You can do the same. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you'll notice that the same thoughts that once stirred up anxiety or anger now just drift by like passing traffic. You see them, but you don't chase them. And here's something beautiful. This practice doesn't just benefit you. When you're less reactive, you're more present with others. You're able to listen without mentally interrupting, speak without the filter of defensiveness, and respond with clarity rather than emotion. That's the real power of mindfulness. It doesn't just clear your head, it opens your heart. There's something beautifully grounding about starting your day by simply being still. Before the world rushes in with its noise and demands, there's this quiet, sacred space where you can meet yourself just as you are. No pressure, no expectations. And one of the most ancient and accessible ways to enter that space is through the breath. It might sound almost too simple, but in Buddhist teachings, the breath is everything. The Buddha himself spoke often about returning to the breath, not as a way to escape life, but as a way to fully be in it. In fact, many of his earliest teachings began with just this: awareness of the breath as the doorway to presence, clarity, and eventually peace. You see, the breath is always with you. It doesn't judge, it doesn't demand, it simply flows in and out, moment by moment. And yet, most of us go through our days barely noticing it. We're breathing, of course, but not really with our breath. We're caught in thought loops, stress cycles, and rushing from task to task. But when you pause, even for just a minute, and bring your attention to your breath, something powerful happens. Your awareness comes home. You're no longer lost in thoughts about yesterday or worries about what's next. You're here, fully. In Buddhism, this simple practice is known as anapanasati, or mindfulness of breathing, and it's considered one of the most direct ways to calm the mind. The Buddha didn't teach breathing meditation as some fancy ritual. He offered it as a practical, grounded method to return to yourself again and again. Because the breath is like a mirror. When it's shallow and fast, it often reflects a mind that's scattered or anxious. But when it's deep and steady, it invites the mind to follow suit. So, what does this look like in practice? First thing in the morning, before reaching for your phone or diving into the noise of the day, just sit for a moment. You don't need a meditation cushion or incense or a special chant, just you sitting comfortably, eyes soft or closed. Feel the breath as it moves in and out of your body. Notice the coolness as you inhale, the warmth as you exhale. You don't need to control the breath. Just observe it, like watching waves roll in and out. Thoughts will come. That's normal. The mind, like the ocean, is rarely still. But when a thought arises, don't fight it. Don't judge it. Just gently notice it, like a cloud drifting across the sky, and return your attention to the next breath. This is the heart of the practice. Not perfection, but returning. Again and again. Even just 5 minutes of this in the morning can change how your entire day unfolds. It's like giving your mind a chance to reset before it's pulled in 100 directions. It's creating a foundation of inner calm that you can carry into everything else. Your conversations, your work, your decisions. And when stress inevitably shows up, you'll know exactly where to return. The breath is your anchor. What I love most about this practice is that it's so forgiving. You don't have to get it right. You don't have to be some enlightened master. You just have to show up. The Buddha often reminded his followers that the path isn't walked in grand leaps. It's taken one step, one breath at a time. And in those quiet moments with your breath, you begin to realize something deeply empowering. Peace isn't something you have to chase. It's already here. It's always been here. You just have to slow down enough to feel it. There's a strange thing our minds tend to do. Before the day even begins, before we've taken a sip of water or stepped outside, we start picturing everything that could go wrong. We mentally rehearse the awkward conversations, the missed deadlines, the stressful moments that haven't even happened yet. And even though nothing's gone wrong yet, we already feel tense. It's like we're preloading the day with anxiety. What's even more interesting is that we do this so often it becomes automatic. The mind, left untrained, naturally gravitates toward what could go wrong instead of what could go right. But here's the beautiful truth. The same way we visualize stress, we can also visualize peace. The same inner energy we spend imagining worst-case scenarios can be used to plant seeds of calm, clarity, and strength. The Buddha understood the mind's power long before modern psychology caught up. He often spoke of how our thoughts shape not just our inner world, but our entire reality. One of his teachings that really stands out is this: whatever one frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of their mind. That means the images, feelings, and ideas we repeat to ourselves, whether negative or positive, become the blueprint for how we move through life. So the question becomes, what kind of blueprint are you building every morning? Are you building one that supports peace or one that amplifies stress? This is where visualization becomes more than a motivational tactic. It becomes a practice of mindfulness, a form of meditation. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't require anything special. You don't need incense, mantras, or robes. You just need a quiet few moments and the willingness to shift how your mind begins the day. So tomorrow morning, before the world starts pulling at your attention, close your eyes. Take a few slow breaths to come back to your body. And then gently, begin to picture yourself in a place of deep calm. It might be a forest, a quiet beach, or even your favorite spot at home. Let the image come alive. Hear the sounds, feel the temperature, see the colors. The mind doesn't know the difference between imagined peace and real peace. Both have the power to calm the nervous system and ground you. Once that peaceful state settles in, take it a step further. Picture yourself moving through your day, not with panic, but with ease. See yourself handling challenges with patience. See yourself speaking gently, making decisions calmly, being present in the small things. Don't worry if it feels awkward at first. Just keep returning to the image. Over time, this becomes more than visualization. It becomes mental rehearsal for the person you're becoming. In Buddhism, this is a form of bhavana, a word that means cultivation or development. We're not just hoping for peace. we're actively cultivating it moment by moment. And what's incredible is how this practice begins to influence not just how you feel, but how you act. Because when you start your day with a mental picture of peace, your body and mind begin to align with it. You're more likely to pause before reacting. You're more likely to speak with kindness instead of tension. You're more likely to handle stress without letting it stick to you. Visualization creates familiarity, and what you're familiar with, you're more likely to return to, especially when things get tough. The Buddha also spoke about the power of intention, that our thoughts are not just passing clouds, but seeds. Whatever you plant in the morning, you will harvest throughout the day. So when you begin the day by visualizing peace, you are planting seeds that bear the fruit of balance, presence, and emotional resilience. You're creating a safe inner space you can return to no matter what the day throws at you. Some days, your own mind can feel like a tough crowd. You wake up, and before you've even taken your first sip of tea or coffee, the inner critic is already whispering. Maybe it's reminding you of something you didn't do yesterday, or something you're afraid you can't do today. It's strange, isn't it? We'd never speak to a friend the way we sometimes speak to ourselves. And yet we let those thoughts sit there, unchallenged, shaping how we feel and how we show up in the world. That's why kindness toward yourself, real, sincere kindness, is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And the Buddha knew this well. In fact, one of his core teachings was the practice of metta, or loving kindness. But here's the part most people overlook. It's not just for others, it begins with you. You see, Buddhism never demanded perfection. The Buddha didn't teach that the goal was to become some flawless, unshakable figure who always has it together. He taught the middle way, a path of balance, where we acknowledge both our humanity and our potential. When you're working to build a peaceful morning, a grounded mind, or a new habit, you're going to have days when things don't go as planned. Maybe you hit snooze, maybe you skip meditation, maybe your thoughts feel too loud and heavy to manage. And in those moments, the old habit is to beat ourselves up. But here's the truth. Beating yourself up never actually helps you grow. It only deepens the habit of suffering. This is where self-compassion enters the picture, not as some fluffy concept, but as a deep spiritual strength. The Buddha himself experienced frustration, sadness, even fear in his early journey. He didn't avoid those feelings, he met them with understanding. And that's exactly what he encouraged his followers to do. When you meet your imperfections with gentleness, something beautiful happens. You stop making your struggle worse by resisting it. Instead, you create space around it, space to learn, space to breathe, space to try again. Let's be honest, some of the hardest moments in life aren't caused by what happens outside of us, but by how harsh we can be inside. That quiet voice that says, "You'll never change," or "You're not doing enough," becomes like a heavy weight you carry all day. But you can shift that, you really can. Start by noticing when that voice shows up, catch it in the act. Not with anger, but with curiosity. "Ah, there you are again." And then gently replace it. Speak to yourself like you would to someone you love. Even something as simple as, "It's okay, I'm still learning," can open the door to peace. In Buddhist teachings, we're reminded that the mind is like a garden. If you water the seeds of judgment and fear, those are the plants that will grow. But if you water the seeds of patience, self-kindness, and humility, they'll grow too. So each morning ask yourself, what am I watering today? Even when you fall short, you get to choose your response. And every time you choose compassion over criticism, you're changing the landscape of your inner world. You don't need to wait until everything is perfect to be gentle with yourself. That moment, when you feel like you've messed up, when you want to crawl back into bed, when your motivation is at zero, that's the exact moment to practice compassion. That's when it matters most. And yes, you'll have to remind yourself again and again. That's okay. Buddhism teaches that practice isn't about instant results. It's about returning. over and over, with kindness, with curiosity, with love. There's something most of us do without even thinking the moment we wake up. We reach for our phones. It's almost automatic. One quick scroll turns into 10 minutes, sometimes 30. And before we've even gotten out of bed, our minds are already overloaded. Messages, emails, news headlines, notifications, a flood of other people's thoughts and problems pouring into our space. And yet, we wonder why we feel anxious, scattered, or disconnected. The Buddha warned of this kind of unconscious living, the way our senses constantly pull us in different directions. He taught that without mindfulness, the mind becomes like a leaf in the wind, easily tossed around by whatever comes its way. In Buddhism, there's a term called sense restraint. It doesn't mean closing your eyes to the world, but learning how to be intentional about what you allow in, especially when your mind is at its softest and most open. And there's no time more vulnerable than right after you wake up. Those first moments of the day set the tone for everything that follows. If you start your morning reacting to noise and stimulation, your entire day becomes one big reaction. But when you begin your day grounded with presence and clarity, you create space. And in that space, peace can enter. Think about it. What if your morning was a little pocket of silence? No buzzing, no scrolling, no comparison, no drama, just stillness. You with yourself. The Buddha often spoke about the value of noble silence, not as a punishment, but as a doorway, a chance to meet your own mind without distraction. And in today's world, that silence is sacred. It's rare, but it's also powerful. When you choose to begin your day away from digital distractions, you're not missing out. You're reclaiming your own attention. You're training your mind to listen inward before listening outward. You might be surprised how much this small shift affects your mood, your focus, and even how you treat others. Without that immediate input from the outside world, you start to hear something else, your own inner voice. And often it's been drowned out by constant noise. The Buddha emphasized that the path to wisdom begins with listening, but we can't listen when we're always reacting. The world will still be there after 30 minutes. But those first few moments in the morning, once they're gone, they're gone. They either serve your peace or they get stolen by distraction. So here's a gentle practice rooted in Buddhist mindfulness. For the first half hour of your day, leave the phone untouched. Instead, start with a few slow breaths. Feel your body. Greet the morning with presence. You can sit in stillness, light a candle, sip your tea mindfully, or simply watch the light changing in the room. This is what monks do in monasteries every single morning. Wake with simplicity, quiet, and reverence for life. And you don't need a monastery to do the same. You just need to protect your mental space like it matters, because it does. And no, this isn't about rejecting technology. It's about choosing not to let it shape the start of your consciousness. The Buddha said, "Just as a fish out of water struggles, so does the mind that is pulled by craving." When we crave stimulation the moment we wake, we're already caught. But when we allow ourselves to simply be, without reacting or grasping, we begin the day from a place of calm power. There's something deeply underrated about the space we wake up in. Most of us roll out of bed without really thinking about it, barely conscious, just reaching for our phone, shuffling through the motions. But have you ever noticed how your surroundings affect your mood, your focus, your energy? The Buddha understood this long before science ever confirmed it. He taught that our external environment reflects and supports our internal state. It's no coincidence that he chose quiet forests, open fields, and serene mountainsides to meditate. Those weren't just backdrops, they were part of the practice. And the truth is, even if we're not living in monasteries or sitting under Bodhi trees, we can still create that sacred space right where we are. You don't need an elaborate altar or a picture-perfect Zen corner to feel peace. What matters is how your space feels to you. When you wake up, Does your room invite you into the day with calm? Or does it already carry tension, cluttered, noisy, overstimulating? The energy of your space lingers, even if you're not consciously thinking about it. That pile of unfolded clothes, the buzzing notifications, the random chaos, it all adds up. It becomes part of your mental load before the day even starts. But when you begin to treat your space as something sacred, even in the smallest ways, you start to shift your entire mindset. In Buddhist monasteries, every object has intention. A cushion isn't just a cushion, it's a place for stillness. A simple bowl is a reminder of humility and presence. The monks take care of their surroundings not just because it's tidy, but because it reflects the respect they have for the present moment. That same principle can apply to you. When you take 5 minutes to clear your nightstand, light a candle, or arrange your space mindfully, you're not just cleaning, you're caring for your mind. You're creating a container for clarity. This doesn't mean you need to turn your room into a minimalist retreat overnight. Start small. Choose one corner. Maybe it's where you sit with your morning tea, or where you take a few mindful breaths. Place something there that brings you peace. A plant, a photo, a small statue of the Buddha, if that resonates with you. Not as decoration, but as a reminder of stillness and awareness. That tiny change can make a huge difference in how your mind responds to the morning. There's something powerful about beginning your day in a space that feels like it supports your peace. It sends a message to your nervous system. You're safe, you're grounded, you're in control. The Buddha often spoke about wise effort, not forcing things, but creating conditions where good qualities can grow. Your space can be one of those conditions. When you shape your environment to reflect intention, you're giving your mind room to breathe. You're telling yourself this day matters, this moment matters. And it's not just about beauty, it's about energy. Think of how you feel in a chaotic space versus a calm one. You can feel the difference, right? That's not in your head. Your surroundings influence your nervous system, your ability to concentrate, even your emotional state. When you create a calm space, you're not escaping life. You're preparing for it. You're setting yourself up to respond rather than react. That's what the Buddha was teaching when he talked about mindfulness, awareness of the present anchored in the body, in breath, in being. Some mornings everything feels rushed. The alarm goes off and instantly your mind kicks into gear, thinking about deadlines, unfinished conversations, the endless list of things to do. You might barely get out of bed before your peace is already slipping away, and yet there's something deeply calming that happens when you pause for just a moment and remind yourself of a simple truth. Nothing lasts forever. The stress, the excitement, the uncertainty, all of it is passing. In Buddhist teaching, this is known as anicca, impermanence, and it's one of the most profound reminders we have to stay grounded. The Buddha spoke often about impermanence, not as a dark or hopeless truth, but as a doorway to freedom. He wanted us to understand that clinging to things, to thoughts, to expectations, is what causes our suffering. Because when we expect things to stay the same, and they inevitably change, we feel lost. But when we embrace the natural flow of life, that everything rises and falls, comes and goes, we begin to move through the world with more grace. And one of the best times to practice this understanding is first thing in the morning. Before your day gets noisy, before your phone lights up with messages, or your mind starts spinning, take a breath. Let it be slow. And say quietly to yourself, this day will come and go. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to open your eyes to how sacred this moment is. You woke up, you're breathing, you're alive, and that alone is a gift. There are people who didn't wake up today. There are moments you'll live today that will never come again. When you truly see that, even the small things, a warm shower, a quiet cup of tea, the morning light through the window, become miracles. You don't have to sit for an hour or chant anything complicated. This practice can be as simple as placing your hand over your heart and reflecting, This moment is precious. That's it. Buddhism isn't about removing yourself from life, it's about being more present for it. And when you bring awareness to the fleeting nature of things, you naturally start to live more fully. You stop postponing happiness. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions. You start appreciating what's already here. This reminder also softens how you relate to your struggles. If you wake up feeling anxious, or if something difficult happened yesterday that's still lingering, just breathe into it and remember, it won't last forever. Emotions are like waves. They rise, they peak, and then they fall. The Buddha compared the mind to the sky, and thoughts and feelings to clouds. No matter how stormy it gets, the sky is never destroyed, and eventually the clouds pass. So when you reflect on impermanence each morning, you're not denying your feelings, you're putting them into perspective. You're reminding yourself that you're bigger than whatever mood or thought is passing through. This practice also deepens your gratitude, because when you know that nothing is guaranteed, not the people in your life, not your health, not even this breath, you stop taking things for granted. You start saying thank you more often, you hug longer, you listen more closely. You see beauty in places you used to overlook. That kind of presence is healing, not only for you, but for everyone you come into contact with. And maybe most importantly, remembering impermanence each morning can bring you peace when things don't go your way. The meeting that falls apart, the unexpected traffic, the tough conversation. You don't have to love these things, but you can meet them with a little more calm, knowing this too shall pass. Because it will. Everything always does. And that's the secret gift inside impermanence. It teaches us to let go of what we can't control and cherish what we have while we have it. Some nights we lie down carrying the weight of the entire day. Our minds race with thoughts about what went wrong, what we didn't finish, what we could have said differently. And somehow, those thoughts feel louder in the dark. But the Buddha offered a beautiful perspective on this. He reminded us that even in the midst of chaos, there's always something to be grateful for. Gratitude, in Buddhist practice, isn't just a nice sentiment, it's a spiritual muscle. It's a way of gently shifting the mind from suffering to peace, and the best time to strengthen that muscle, right before you sleep. Ending your day with gratitude is like placing a warm blanket over the mind. It tells your nervous system, you are safe, you have enough, you are enough. And in the teachings of the Buddha, this isn't just positive thinking, it's mindfulness in action, it's seeing clearly. Because so often, the mind clings to what's missing, what's lacking, what's painful. That's the nature of craving. But gratitude interrupts that loop. It teaches the mind to rest in what is already here, what we already have. It reminds us that peace isn't something we chase, it's something we uncover. One of the most grounding ways to practice this is through something as simple as a gratitude journal. You don't need anything fancy, just a pen, a notebook, and a quiet moment at the end of your day. Before sleep, write down 3 things you're grateful for, and they don't have to be big. In fact, it's often the small things that are the most powerful. The smile of a stranger, the softness of your bed, the fact that your heart kept beating through another day. These are the things we miss when the mind is too loud. But when we slow down and name them, it's like shining a light into the corners of our day and realizing they were filled with goodness all along. In Buddhist monasteries, monks often chant verses of gratitude before sleep. They don't do this to ignore suffering. They do it to train the mind to recognize the full picture of life, not just the pain, but also the blessings, because when you look honestly, you'll see both always exist. Joy and sorrow, comfort and discomfort, light and shadow. Gratitude is the lens that helps us hold both with balance. It teaches us to stop waiting for perfect moments to feel thankful, and instead to find beauty in the moment we're already in. And here's something else. Ending your day with gratitude doesn't just help you sleep better, it changes how you wake up. When you go to bed feeling grounded, your mind is more likely to begin the next day with clarity and openness. You start to notice the sunrise again. You take that first breath in the morning with a little more appreciation. Gratitude is contagious. It seeps into every corner of your life once you start practicing it sincerely. The Buddha often reminded us not to overlook the simple things, because it's in the simple that the profound is hidden. A thankful heart isn't just more peaceful, it's more awake. And when you end your day with that kind of presence, you're not just closing your eyes, you're letting go. Letting go of the day's heaviness. Letting go of what didn't go as planned. Letting go of self-judgment. Gratitude becomes your soft landing, your return to self, your quiet way of saying, this day was a gift and I received it. No matter how heavy today felt or how restless your mind has been, remember this. Peace is always just one breath, one thought, one moment of gratitude away. You are not alone in this journey, and every step you take toward awareness and compassion is a step toward freedom. If this video brought you even a little more clarity, there's another waiting for you on the screen now. Go ahead and watch it. Your path to peace continues there. Thank you for being a part of Buddhist Journey. I'm truly honored to walk this path with you.